Brands on Brands.
Hey, what's up? This week we're talking about podcasting trends for 2021. That's right, how to set yourself up for a great year of podcasting. Check it out.
In a world where content is king and your reputation is your brand, how do you build a brand that matters? Welcome to Brands on Brands, a home for those that think different and push their boundaries. This is where branding that matters lives. Now, here is your host, Brandon Berkmeyer.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Brands on Brands. I'm Brandon Berkmeyer, your personal branding coach, and I believe that building a brand that matters is the only way for you and your business to thrive tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in each week. Today is another solo show. Today we are talking about podcasting trends for all my podcasters out there, content creators, anyone thinking about starting a podcast or who has already started a podcast. This is the show for you. Got to pay attention to what's happening in the world around you. And today I'm breaking it down for you. Let's jump into it.
Brands on Brands.
All right, let's get going. So, podcasting trends for 2021. What do I see happening? Because right now, the best way to judge a trend is to see what is happening already. What is happening right now in the world? Because that is what you can expect to continue happening and to grow at scale, right? So here are three things that I see happening right now. Number one, we're going to be talking about video podcasting. Number two, we're going to talk about repurposing your content. And number three, we're going to be talking about branded podcasts. Those are the three trends that I think we're leaning into. I'm going to call this a year of branded podcasting, and we're going to lean into that. So let's start with this video podcasting. What am I talking about? Because that could be confusing for some people. Video podcast, isn't that just a YouTube? Well, no, it's not. Why? Because when you are creating your content to begin with, you are building it with podcasting in mind. You are building it to be consumed in an audio format first. So you are concerned about how it sounds. You're concerned about how the show is built in a way that keeps people engaged for 40 minutes, if that's how your podcast is structured, which most of them are. You're concerned about the interviews and how you're going to get the most out of your guests and things like that. And then you are thinking about how does this translate into other formats, right? However, video is going to be a huge part of this, right? How do we leverage video to A, show up in other channels like YouTube and get found by the search engines, B, to add content to our website that makes it more interesting, and then C, to take that video and use it as shorter clips and snippets that can be interesting in terms of promoting your show on social media, right? Video podcasting is the next step. If you're a podcaster, it should be obvious that this is a huge opportunity because guess what? You don't have to change much of what you're doing. You already have a computer in front of you and a microphone. All you need to do is buy a webcam that costs less than $100, stick it on top of your computer, and press record. Now, obviously, I'm simplifying things. It can be a little more complicated than that. That's why I just did a 3-part series on video podcasting, the why you should video podcast, the things you need to get set up video podcasting, and how to execute converting your show from podcast to the other spaces, other media channels. If you want to check that out, just check out the last 3 episodes that's just called video podcasting that I put out, and just check them out. It'll help you get started. But why is this so important? Why is video podcasting a trend? Well, number one, podcasting for most of us that aren't, the top 10 shows in the world need to find more eyeballs and earbuds for our show, right? We need more people listening. And the way to do that is to diversify, to get ourselves across other channels. Video is a great resource to get you there. It is a great source file to convert into lots of different things. And on top of that, when you can add video to your show, you now open yourself up to getting a little more creative with the types of content you're creating. You can be thinking about how does this translate to other channels? Now, the great thing about video is it is the top engaged with format for other channels. For YouTube, obviously, is all video, but even your social channels, your stories on Instagram, your stories on Facebook, embedded posts on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn, vertical video on TikTok. All of these things can originate from one source. Why would you want to create across all channels, right? Start with one source. And to do that, video is going to be your source file. Now, I believe in people starting with podcasting before they start with video. What does that mean? It means sometimes you need to learn how to find your voice, and cameras can be intimidating. Lighting can be intimidating. If you start by podcasting first, you develop the skills you need to then eventually transition. But you have to plan to transition, because if you only keep yourself in the podcasting world and you never think about how do I share my story on social media, how do I share my story on YouTube, and eventually how do I build a blog that matters on my website and videos that matter on my website, you are missing the opportunity to reach all the other people that haven't converted to podcasting, or that maybe they have, but they're not spending all their time there. They're still spending a ton of time on social media and other channels. So to take advantage of that, to capitalize on your reach being everywhere, you need to have a video podcast. Now, I'll transition into the repurposing piece of this, but I'll leave you with this, right? The top brands out there, the top brands you think of when you're out there purchasing from the big companies that I've worked for, like Apple and Coca-Cola, companies that I've worked on their media planning and brand strategy on. The thing that they know how to do that no one thinks about, everyone thinks about advertising with them. The thing they know how to do that no one thinks about is distribution. They are amazing distribution companies. Number one, they put their products everywhere people can find them. And number two, they find channels to put their advertising that everyone sees. They are like, how do I reach as many people as possible, the fastest and most easiest way possible? They think about distribution, right? If you want to buy a Coca-Cola, it's not just at the grocery store. It's at the grocery store on the front shelves and at the checkout lines. But beyond that, it's also at the gas stations. It's at the movie theaters. It's at the theme parks. It is literally at every convenience store. And you can't walk a couple blocks without being able to buy a Coca-Cola, right? Why? Because they created a massive distribution system. Your content is your product as a podcaster. So you need to figure out a way to distribute your content like Coca-Cola distributes their bottles. How do you get it everywhere? And that's not just simply distributing your podcast to all the podcast players, right? That doesn't mean people are finding it. That's like writing a book and sticking it on the back shelf of a bookstore, but no one ever finding that book, right? You've still got to put it in other places that people are actually spending their time. And what does that mean? That means you've got to go and put your podcast on social media where people are spending their time, because that's really like the majority of people's time is spent on Facebook and Instagram, number one and two. Like that's just what it is right now. Sure, there's more time going to TikTok now, but it's still not even close to Facebook and Instagram. So you have to be there. You just do. And then YouTube is just doing an amazing job of serving your content up to people. And then Google search, like Google search and YouTube search are the number one ways you could be found. So video is going to help you get there. That's what we're trying to talk about. So number two thing we're going to talk about is repurposing, right? Repurposing is the second trend that I want to convey to you guys today. What is repurposing? Well, repurposing is simply multi-channel distribution. It is what we're just talking about. It is how you take your pillar content, in other words, your episode, your raw source material, your raw file, and distribute it everywhere without having to recreate new content for Facebook, new content for TikTok, new content for articles on LinkedIn, and new content for articles on your website, long form videos on YouTube, short form videos on YouTube, stories in every different version, right? That is a lot of work to independently create those individually over and over and over again. So you need a source file. And then the repurposing can happen. You can start with that video clip that is a video podcast that we just talked about and take it, and you can take your most, like full version of it, have that edited to where it sounds good, looks good, and is readable, make YouTube videos, podcasts, and blogs out of them, right? That's the original content in its best form. You can chop it up into shorter form content that is, like shorter stories, shorter blogs, shorter videos, 10-minute videos, 5-minute videos that follow a train of thought, that keep your content to a particular subject, because to be honest, most of us go on tangents and talk about lots of things for 40 minutes and just pick one train of thought, isolate it, and just create one show from that, right? And now you've got 2 or 3 different long form pieces of content, or, middle form, short form pieces of content from that one piece. And you put that everywhere. And then you have short form, which is like your shortest of the short, the 1 minute or less video clips, highlights, quotes, graphics that pull out the little moments, the little key moments that really stand out and grab your emotions in your content. And you put those everywhere, right? And you can schedule that out with social media schedulers. But point is, you are now proliferating, right? You are creating content that is prolific, that is everywhere. And you did that because you recorded 1 hour of content. Now, I do have a resource. If you guys want to know how to take 1 hour content and convert it into 1 month of content, just go to brandsonbrands.com/toolkit. I've walked through the steps there for you guys, and that's there to serve you. It's free. Just download the link. But repurposing is where I'm focusing a lot of time, because not only is it so effective, but also I think people are scared because it can seem difficult. It can seem daunting to turn one piece of content into so many pieces of content. But there are simple systems and tools that are already out there for you to take advantage of. Now, if you are the one-stop shop, you are the person doing all the work on your show yourself, you can still leverage tools to help you get this stuff done quickly. But I'm hoping that a lot of you are creators out there that have realized the benefit of outsourcing, that you have found the opportunity to leverage virtual assistants and virtual graphic designers and virtual editors for blogs and virtual editors for video. You are leveraging that talent pool that is all over our country and other countries across the world to efficiently get your content produced and distributed where you can just be the creator, right? Maybe you don't have a budget for that, but I'll tell you, for as little as sometimes $15 an hour or less, you can have someone for 10 hours a week taking care of everything for you, really doing everything. Though you might want to specialize and have like an audio editor just doing that part, but you can figure that out, figure out what your budget is. And maybe for like $100 a week, you can get all of this done, right? Everything. And then if that's not your budget and you need smaller than that, you can do some of it yourself and then pay someone to do the other piece you really don't want to do and then work up to that. But repurposing, I'd say, is the secret skill that anyone is leaning into. And again, it's a mix of the systems you set up. It's a mix of the tools that you use to help you get it done and the talent you use to help you execute the process. That's repurposing in a nutshell. And I hope you guys take advantage of it. It's made leaps and bounds for my business and content distribution on my end. So repurposing is the second thing. You're going to see more and more people do it because it's getting easier and easier. And there are companies out there helping people with it right now. And then lastly, I'll mention, by the way, if you guys need help with that and you just aren't sure where to get started, hit me up. Go to brandsonbrands.com/coach, set up a time to talk with me. And maybe I can help you get your systems up and running so that you can be working like a content machine, content engine, instead of just a creator that's doing everything themselves. So hit me up if you guys want to check that out. Lastly, branded podcasts. This is my last trend that we'll talk about today. Branded podcasts. What is this? This means, how do you leverage a podcast to build your brand, the brand of you or the brand of your business? This is happening a lot already. Companies are realizing that content is the lifeblood of their business. It is what's driving attention to their business. Like you or anyone else, they need to be found. If they want people to buy their products, they need the attention of the consumer. And how do you get attention? Well, it's simple. You have a great message that speaks to your audience and you put it into the places where people are actually spending their time, right? Message and attention. Combine those two, you have a marketing plan. Now, to be a branded podcast, obviously, your company needs to find a story or an angle that really works for how they create content. Maybe for some companies, or if you're an independent entrepreneur, it is your educational content. It is the content of how to do this, how to do that. Maybe it's just informational content, resources, how to find these other things. Maybe if you are a business that is more of a retail business or something like that, you are looking at, how do we entertain and bring audience in that is looking to be entertained? Or maybe you are someone that's a little more aspirational. You have that kind of business. Maybe then you're building content that just inspires and motivates people, right? You can decide that, but you can, figuring out how do you carve out a niche that is authentic to you, that speaks to your brand core values and offers value in some way that your audience is looking for from you. Are they looking for you to help them with information, inspiration, or some kind of education, right? At the end of the day, what can you really step up and own? to build your branded podcast around. And, there's some logistics to that. Yeah, you got to figure out, who's hosting this. Is it someone you're paying? Is it someone that works for your company? Is it the CEO? Where does that tie in? Maybe you have a company where your personal brand, the leadership of the company and the company's business are integrally tied together, right? Intricately tied together. And that would make a lot of sense to then have them as the host of the podcast. Or maybe you can outsource it to someone who's just good at, they know your industry enough that they can bring the guests on and interview them and bring experts on and talk about these things. They can have interviews, or they could just be solo shows that you curate and produce. But the value is all of these things you create are now thought leadership content for your business, or they are entertainment, or they are some kind of source material that leads people to you as you being the content creator. So instead of you paying to put ads in front of things that other people created, which is effective, you are creating something organic that is integrated into the community of your audience. Now, let me give you an example. This isn't the first time this has happened, right? This has been happening for a long time. And a company that did this amazing was Red Bull, right? Red Bull realized that they needed to beat out the other massive caffeine soda companies or whatever. They realized they needed to tap in to the community of their customers. They needed to be a part of their culture. So they realized that exports and extreme sports were a part of that culture. And they said, you know what? Let's throw the events. Let's be a part of the events. Let's sponsor the events. Let's create the events that are so integrally tied to our customers. And they are now synonymous with extreme sports, right? And then that turned into other things and other stunts and things that they went beyond with. But it started with this mindset of, I am not going to just advertise to my customer. I'm going to build experiences with my customer and for my customer. And I'm going to be a part of their community instead of speaking to their community, right? And a media platform like a podcast can be the groundwork for you to do that. It can be the source material for you to have content that feeds your website, that feeds your social media, that fills all those channels and creates community and engagement with your audience. So that's what's happening these days. You'll see a lot of brands now starting to create and have already created podcasts that, guess what, jump to the top of the charts because they also have money to put behind ads to prop these platforms up and to send their audience to that. And guess what? Once they have the audience one time, they are now subscribers. So instead of paying for an ad every time, they're now building an audience that accumulates over time and becomes part of their world instead of just someone watching TV, right? That's the magic and the power of creating your own media platforms. Your own media platforms can still be events, which is a huge budget for a lot of companies. It can still be short form content and TV shows, which are harder and more expensive to produce. It can still be social media posts. But if you create something that's more platform oriented, like a YouTube channel, like a podcast, you're going to be better off for it. And podcasts are a pretty low commitment start to test the waters and get your footing to see, are we going the right way? Can we optimize this better to really be what our audience is looking for from us? So branded podcasts, I think, are a huge trend for 2021. And I'm excited to see how this grows and develops. But I hope that was helpful for you. If you guys are podcasting, you guys are out there, you're a business, you're a podcaster, whatever it is, I hope you guys lean into these trends to give your business and your brand the opportunity to grow and develop and to shine. And I hope that if that was helpful for you guys today, screenshot this episode, go to Instagram, tag me, let me know so I can interact with you guys. Otherwise, I appreciate you for listening. And again, reach out to me anytime, brandsonbrands.com/coach, if you want to implement any of this in your business today. All right, guys, that's it for me this week. I appreciate you, and I will catch you all next time.
You've just taken your marketing knowledge to another level with this episode of Brands on Brands. But we have plenty more ways to help you build a brand that matters. Head over to brandsonbrands.com for resources, as well as access to our blogs, videos, and exclusive coaching sessions with your host. Be sure to visit brandsonbrands.com.